This Choircast podcast is brought to you by Honoring the Journey, the deconstruction of Sister Christian, written by me, Leslie Neese. I am a former radio host in the Christian community, also a castaway on Survivor China, where they dubbed me Sister Christian. And this book is my memoir and also some of the things that I've learned along the way of my deconstruction. You can pick it up now on Amazon or listen to it on Audible. Welcome to Honoring the Journey, a sacred space for the seekers, the question askers, and the brave souls who are unraveling and rebuilding one layer at a time. Here, we don't rush the process. We hold space for the ache, the wonder, the clarity, and the unknown. This is not about answers. It's about permission to be fully in your becoming. If something you hear today stirs something in you, I'd be so grateful if you'd leave a review or share this with somebody else who may come to your mind as you listen. It helps others to find their way here, and it also helps me to keep offering these conversations to those who need them most. And if you ever find yourself craving a guide on your journey, someone to hold space, ask questions, and help you reconnect to your truest self, I'd love to work with you. You can learn more about my coaching at leslieneescoaching.com. For now, take a breath. You're here, and that matters. Thank you for helping me honor another amazing journey today. Hello and welcome back to Honoring the Journey. I'm Leslie Neese, your host. Today we have a very special guest who I actually met in a very unique way. Her name is Amanda Darrow, and she is literally one of the coolest people I think I've ever met. We met online, but then found out we were very close. Like, she's here in Utah. And so we met up for lunch one day, and it was, I don't know, hour and a half, 2 hours of just total connection. You know what I mean? Like when you meet somebody and you're like, this person is so cool. And I love what she does. So I wanted to shine a little light on that. And I also want to talk to her because Amanda has a really interesting journey. I'll let her get into it, in a very interesting state, Utah. And I just can't wait to dive in. Amanda, thank you so much for coming and being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Amanda and I have something in common. We are both kind of doormatty, or we were. We're trying not to be. We're trying not to be people pleasers. We are recovering people pleasers. And my friend, and you may know her, Parvati Shallow, she does a class on how to be a villain. And I saw it and I was like, wow, that looks interesting. You know, it's not that I don't want to be a villain, but I want to be okay with being the villain in somebody's story because, people tend to make their own judgments. And so I was just curious. And so I took the class, and Amanda was in the class too. And so that's kind of how our paths crossed, right?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to learn how to be the villain. I felt like I was ready to start telling people no. And I was like, who better than Parvati to teach us how to say no and to be a villain?
The Black Widow herself. If you don't know, maybe some of you, I can't imagine why you wouldn't watch Survivor, but very, very big personality and game player. And she's amazing on Survivor. Yeah, she's pretty great and such a sweet person. Like, it's funny, she can be a villain, but it's kind of like Courtney on my season.
Mm-hmm.
Courtney was kind of portrayed as this loudmouth, always throwing around things about people, talking about people. But she's also one of the deepest, most kind, generous humans that you've ever seen. But they pigeonhole you, when you're in reality. So, yeah. So what did you learn from that, Amanda? Just out of curiosity, how do you feel after you took that class?
I really did build confidence. I think that was the best thing that Parvati and Callie were able to give us, right? But Parvati really builds confidence and just gives you this like, well, why are you doing this? And this pushback to like, why do you want to be a villain? Why tell me more? And then we talk about it. And she just comes with this way that's like, just say no, just do it. Just be proud of who you are. And if you're going to bring in both of your worlds, bring them and be proud. And it's like, okay, cool. Yeah. Thanks for building that confidence in me. And I think that that journey to me was really special. I was going through a rough time in my life, a breakup. And I think that she just built some confidence that I needed. And it was really easy for me to go through that breakup during that time, and to have this like, I don't need to please people. I need to please myself. And that's what I really gained from that. And I'm like forever grateful. Wish the class was longer. Maybe I'll take another session. I don't know. We'll see.
Do it again. Well, it's interesting because, you know, it takes years and years and years to get to a place of just kind of like making everybody happy around you at the expense of your own happiness. I mean, it takes years to do that. So it's not going to be a 6 or 10 week, however many weeks it was, you know, it's not going to be a course like that to get rid of it. But what it did do, I think, for both of us was say, okay, I think I'm going to live. The world didn't end when I stood up for myself. And I have found my voice to, you know, in deconstruction has been a lot stronger since that too. So it was kind of fun. I don't know. I'm a big believer in coaching, you know, obviously I am a coach. And so I knew I would get something from it. And I wasn't even able to go to every single session because of my stupid schedule, but I really, really gained a lot in a little bit of time. So good for you for stepping into that, Amanda.
Yeah. I mean, one of the quotes that she used was, every time you say no to someone else, you're saying yes to yourself. And I'm like, how beautiful is it to be able to say yes to yourself now and to grow? And so I think, and I'm bringing that into the work that I do and how much I can give to others by giving to myself. And it's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And I of course, do not want to forget to mention Callie, her partner with this. Callie is amazing. She also does workshops and things like that. So I'll put their stuff, just why not, Amanda? Let's put their information in the link in case anybody's interested. Just to, you know, maybe you want to dip your toe and trying to be okay with being the villain. You know, it's not about turning into this horrific person. That's not who she is. It's not who either of them are, but just to be able to be okay with the fact that sometimes people are going to look at you and think some things that are going to make you really, really sad and uncomfortable, but you'll live through it. It's okay.
Yeah. It feels like my life, my daily life is people looking at me and thinking that. So,
well, that's where we're going to get started then, Amanda. Let's talk about your journey now. Let's talk about little Amanda growing up in Utah and not Mormon.
Yeah. Growing up in Utah, not Mormon. It's been a wild ride, to say the least. And I don't think people understand how much of the church is truly ran here in this state. And when you are an outsider and you do not fit in, what it does to people. And I think that I didn't really recognize how much it impacted my life until I got older and realized the things that I went through. So growing up, I come from a Jewish Catholic world, and in Utah, we've got our right.
Wow. Okay.
I've got like double guilt going on in my life. I'll tell you what. My life could be a sitcom. Hey, anyone wants to follow it? Let's go. But the biggest moment that I really realized that I was different, I was 8 years old. So in Utah, in the LDS church, at 8 years old, the kids get baptized. So up until 8, you kind of have this freedom. Thank you for joining me
for another amazing episode.
The kids can kind of do all the bad things.
I hope you enjoyed
like the night before you get
story
baptized, you'll go through and you'll call people and you'll swear. And it's like,
oh,
that's so terrible, right?
But the whole point of the whole
do
thing
stuff
is just to teach us.
I'm not saying you're like a terrible kid.
It's very difficult to do that in today's world where everybody thinks they're right.
Everybody
thinks everybody else is wrong. So
Thank
you for doing this,
my
not
friend,
only for yourself,
I go up to her house. She had just gone to church, and I went over to go try and play, and her mom answered the door.
Remember, if you're looking for deconstruction coaching, you can find out more at my website, leslieneescoaching.com.
But she told me that Jody couldn't play with me anymore.
Leave us a review right
there
on
Apple
Apple
and she
or
couldn't play with me anymore,
Spotify, whatever you're listening to.
She didn't even tell you
why. Leave a review there.
And
don't forget, my book is out right now on Amazon, Honoring the Journey, the deconstruction of Sister Christian. Basically,
why
it's
was
my
I the
whole
bad
journey.
kid?
Just
and also, where was my
words
guilt for not being baptized
at
that?
Idea of
like,
why I went through
couldn't I
deconstruction, why I
like
went through
my
deconstruction,
friends?
and
just so I could
see
continue
the
to
world
play with
now.
my friends.
So you can pick that up on
play with my
Amazon.
friends.
Thanks so much, and have an amazing
That's what our
day.
life as an 8-year-old is about. And I remember being so sad. She only lived about 4 houses down from me, and I remember walking back up and just feeling like I was a bad person. And it hurts as a kid. It truly hurts to feel different. And I already grew up feeling different. I've always been a little tomboy, a little gender nonconforming, and being queer, Jewish, and very masculine in the state of Utah is a whole different world.
In a woman's body.
In a woman's body who identifies as a woman. It is very different here. And I already felt that shame. And so, now being told, well, you're different than everyone else in religion. So I have a lot of things that just kind of kept tackling, like lining up and being told you're different, you don't belong here. And, I would, in order to hang out with my friends growing up, I would have to attend, I'd have to either be at their house, they could never come to my house, or I would have to attend what's called young women's activities. And that's at the church. The young women would all gather, these preteens, teenagers, all the things. And I'd have to attend those things so that people could have eyes on me while I played with their kid. As if I was just this really bad influence. Wow. Maybe I would push back against the doctrine. Maybe, I don't know what it was.
Did you though? Like, do you remember doing that? I don't think you even understand that if you're not in a church, like practicing like that.
As I got older, I did start to have a little bit of pushback. We have seminary here in Utah, and that's a class that you take during school. I was in it for one day. They only allowed me. So I came in, and I will admit, like 9th grade, I did have some critical thinking skills. I was able to talk about things.
Well, that did not fit well with religion, I am sure.
It didn't. Sure. So we had our seminary teacher, and I raised my hand. And the only question I asked before they removed me was, just help me understand this. If Jesus was Jewish, why wouldn't you follow Judaism if you're so into Jesus? Yeah. And they pulled me out of the class, told me I couldn't be in the class. And it was just because I asked a question that I just quite didn't grasp, but enough. I did understand that I was pushing back a little bit because I did want to understand. So I got removed from seminary. So yeah, maybe I did push the kids a little bit to think, but isn't that what we're supposed to do if we truly want to believe something, is to think about it and question? Yeah.
Well, honestly, if you really want to make that choice, but if you're being indoctrinated, that's not a choice. You don't think about it. You just trust what you're told. And I mean, I just know that from my own experience. I don't know anything about being LDS or Mormon. I've never been in that religion, but religion in general, just very much, hey, this is the truth and it's the only truth and we're the one true church. So I'm sure you heard a lot of that from your friends. And were they worried about you? Were they worried for your soul?
Oh yeah, I heard that all the time. I know a lot about the LDS church and maybe not as much into the other churches, but I would hear the eternity. This is all about our eternity. We need to get, and I would hear, we're going to get to the celestial kingdom, but you will never get there. It's not a place that you will ever go. And I'm like, hold on, you're going somewhere else. If I was to come to heaven with you, you would be going to a special heaven. Unless I follow your church, then I could come to that part of heaven. But now I'll never get to any of your parts of heaven because I'm queer. So I'm also now going to hell.
A double whammy.
All the pressure you're like,
whew.
And then I started to be like, to my friends, when they would say things like that, it's like, well, I would rather not be in your heaven, and I'd rather be in my hell if that means I get to live my true authentic self now. I get to be with who I love. And the conversations would be there, and they were like, is your happiness here on earth more important than your forever eternity? And I'm like, yeah, it is.
It's all I know. It's all I have.
It's guaranteed.
I don't know what's next. None of us do.
Yeah. My life right now is guaranteed. I have a hard time going and thinking about what could be, and rather living in the moment. And I think that does come from my Judaism. And I hold on to that piece with that, is that I don't sit there and think of an afterlife. I think about taking care of the individuals and myself in this current life and this space, because I don't believe in the afterlife.
Right, right. And whether you believe it or not doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that for a long time, when you're in religion, I don't know if you know this, Amanda, but when you're in religion, if you don't believe the right way, then your eternity is at stake. So there's so much fear baked into it. So you can't even imagine what that's like. But I saw something the other day. It's like if somebody's asking you for money and says that you're going to get paid back in the next life, in eternity, run,
Mm.
because nobody knows really what's going to happen. I know we think we know. Oh, well, the Bible says this, or the Book of Mormon says that, or whatever, but really it's all interpretation, it's all nuanced, it's all, there's just so much, I don't know, so many different ways to look at it, and who knows what's right, if any of it, you know.
Yeah. And it's hard for me as someone who thinks very logically to see that there could be something out there. Like, I would rather just know. I'm such a no person. And I value so much for people to have their own beliefs and their own
Absolutely. Yeah.
journeys. I just wish more of us led with this sense of you do your journey, I'll do my journey. I know that there's people out there trying to save us in their minds. They're trying to do what they need to for their heart, for humankind. I just wish there was a little more thought and care behind the fact that we all get to choose our own journeys. And I'm happy to listen to you as you want to share with, your
Yeah,
journey
yeah.
or your take on religion and why you feel so strongly that your religion is the true religion. But I also hope that you can give me compassion and listen to my journey and my reasoning and where I feel I need to be in my life without so much guilt coming back at me.
Ooh, yeah.
It's
Well,
just
that's why
been,
I call this podcast Honoring the Journey,
yeah.
because that's what I'm trying to do. It's like I don't really care. I don't just want people on here who see life the way I do and who see eternity the way I want people on here who see it different. And I want people to see what it's like to actually listen to what they have to say without trying to change their mind.
I think that's why you and I connected so well, is
Yeah.
because we were just listening to each other's
Yeah.
stories with so much care.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that. And I've noted that you do that so well, that you give
Oh, thank
so
you.
much care to listening to people.
I
And
love
I
it.
I just I really appreciate that aspect that you do.
Well, I appreciate that you said that. I actually just realized, I mean, I think I've always kind of known, but like Survivor is what brought that out in me. And, just going away from my group of people who all believed just like me. It's very easy to walk out your faith when you're surrounded by people who believe just like you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then when I went on Survivor and I was surrounded by people who didn't see things like me, but they were lovely humans, is when I realized, oh, wait a minute, maybe I'm not listening. Maybe I'm not, it took years to get to this spot. But like, yeah, I think when I realized that everybody had a journey and everybody was on their own, and I don't know, it just opened my eyes and my heart. And I'm thankful. Thank you for saying that. That's like the biggest compliment anybody can give me.
I love it. And I think, because I live in a state where so many people are we call it Utah nice. It's kind of like a fake nice. They'll be very nice to my face, but then they'll talk about us behind our backs. It's just kind of the way Utah works.
At the
And
prayer meeting. Yeah.
yeah, at the prayer meeting. And unfortunately, like you want to feel that they have your best interest in mind, right? Like, and they are listening to you. But there's been so many times where that's not the case and they end up hurting you instead. And that happens a lot with Utahns trying to, understand or not necessarily accept. I don't believe that a lot of people necessarily here in the state want to accept the queer community, but I think that they will be nice to your face about it. And then just lots of homophobic and transphobic messaging is occurring in this state. And it's just really hard and sad.
It is. It's really hard. And one thing I've noticed that's different with the LDS Mormon faith and where I come from, just so you understand, like they don't move the goalpost where I come from. If it's in the Bible and it's interpreted the way that they say, that truth will never change. Like, I don't care what happens in the world. We don't have prophets that change things. We don't have prophets that say, okay, well, now here we can drink soda now, or we can have caffeine, or we can, we don't have anybody who does that. We just, when it comes to the doctrines that they hold dear, they just don't move those goalposts. As a matter of fact, we've been doing the exact same thing, we thought, since the church started a long, long time ago. But if you look back at the original, like early church doctrines and stuff, they're so different now than they ever were. But, we just don't change things just because culture changes. We think that's wrong. Okay. And so it's really interesting to me to be in this, I guess, culture where they have prophets that literally are speaking for God, that are alive today, that are telling them, oh, now we can accept the LGBTQIA community, but, they can't, serve, they can give their money, obviously, but they can't serve, they can't, be married in the temple, all of that. So I think they're trying a little bit, it seems. Do you feel that, Amanda?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of gone up and down in waves, right? At first, it was like, absolutely not. We had where they were so against gay marriage that they were helping fund it. We had the kids couldn't have gay parents, or they couldn't, be part of the church. There's been so much that's like up, down, up, down. You can be gay, but you can't act on it. And it's like, there were so many restrictions around this that it's like, and then now it's like, nah, none of that. So wow. It's just been a really wild up and down messaging. And I don't know if it's necessarily helped, but I do know that in my lifetime, I've seen a lot of individuals in the church say, I'm leading from a place of Christianity and I want to love you as my neighbor and with care. And there has been a lot of individuals that have stepped into that space. And so I do appreciate that. It's not just been all negative, right?
Right.
There's a lot of people that say, in my faith, this is what I feel is right. The church might be saying one message, but this is what I feel is leading with Christianity. And I really appreciate the individuals that give me that message and lean into that a little bit.
And while you were growing up and, recognizing, I think I might have same-sex attraction, I am definitely gay, like I'm going in this direction. Did you ever feel like you needed to did you ever try to not be gay? Like, what was that process like? And what was it like? How did it end up? Well, obviously it ended up not working, but like, let's talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So I knew that I liked women, girls. I was 6 years old. I was in first grade and I had a crush on this girl. And I remember just being like, oh, I love her. But I knew that I wasn't supposed to love her. That's what the world was telling me. It was telling me that I was not supposed to have a crush on a girl. I was supposed to have crushes on boys. It was what the world just reinforced in me every day. I never saw somebody two women or two men together. It just, growing up, you just didn't see it. It was hidden.
Especially around here, I'm sure.
Yeah. And I'm 39 years old. I'm not like living back in the 50s. People were literally hiding it and having codes. Like it should have been there in my timeline, but it wasn't. Utah is a little behind. And I kept trying to reinforce to myself, you are not gay. Doing the whole let's get boyfriends, let's have that aspect. And it was really hard. And then I started at 15 to have my first queer relationship. Now it was behind the scenes,
of course,
with someone on my basketball team. And I had so much internalized homophobia that when people started to think that there was anything going on, I tried to push it away from myself. And unfortunately, I hurt that human by outing that human and being like, no, she's gay, but I'm not. And one of my biggest regrets in my entire life is the way that I went about that. But I was so much hatred for myself. And then when I was 18 years old, my mom walked in on me and a girl in my bed, and out I came, I guess.
Wow.
Not by choice, but my mom, being the woman that she is, decided to call my whole family and tell my whole family my secret. I never actually got to come out. It happened, and she had shared it. I was taken out of that closet. I was dragged out of that closet.
Oh,
And
I'm so sorry, Amanda. That's hard.
Yeah, and I was given lots of love from my family. You know, my cute grandpa was like, he calls me Mander, and he was like, "You're still my Mander. No, nothing's changed," you know, and there was love. But her father, who had religious ties to the LDS church, through his wife, not my grandmother, had sent an email out to my entire family that marriage is between a man and a woman, and that he's, you know, not here to accept who I am. And it turned pretty hard in my family, because I saw my aunts trying to defend me. They thought that's what they needed to do. They thought they needed to fight with their father. And I was like, no, you know, I'm okay. I don't need his love and support. That's fine. He's just a human. At this point, he's still just a human. I don't talk to him. I've only surrounded myself with family members who have shown, you know, love and support. And I don't need the acceptance. I just don't need you to try to drag me down and, you know, try to tell me what I did was wrong. We have enough guilt in this world. And it's hard enough being gay in this world to have people that you think love you to tell you no. It's not.
In their defense, and I only say this because this was me 10 years ago, Amanda, I believe they really think they're being loving by telling you the quote unquote truth. So that's where the nuance gets really weird. It's like weird. Like, how do you tell somebody that is not love when they think it's more loving than loving you to? I remember saying, you're just going to love these gay people to hell if you're not honest with them. You know, it took me doing the work of figuring out, is that what the Bible really said? Or was that something that, and I, of course, came to a conclusion that that is not what the Bible is saying. This was it was put in the Bible in 1946. Just, I don't know if you know that or not. You know, and one of the guys who was on the board, or the guys who translated the Bible for, I think it was the NIV, is in a movie called 1946. Have you seen this movie, Amanda? I think you would love it.
I haven't seen it, but I saw the podcast with.
Oh, yeah. She's amazing. She did some serious research, found a guy who was on the committee and talked about that word. And I think once you start to understand, and, you know, to be honest, if I'm being honest, I really did not feel right about my stance, but I felt like I didn't have a choice. I felt like it wasn't being loving if I didn't tell people they were wrong.
Yeah.
And so it's so messed up, because it is destroying families. It is destroying relationships and, you know, and lives, you know.
Yeah.
How did you make peace with this? Because you're in such a good place now. And I know that didn't come easy.
It didn't, you know, especially as a young person, I was a little more ready to fight for my existence than now, where I am just living so unapologetically queer at this stage. But it did take time to get there, right? I had to grow up. That happened. I what we call as my little baby gay self. I just had been forced out of the closet, and I was going through the trauma. And I think that I just let my emotions take over at first. And I wasn't able to see other people's sides, right? And as I grew and I started to use my education to critically think and see other people's sides, because I went to a very liberal arts college here in Utah that opened me up to very diverse perspectives, because I myself, even being as diverse as I am, I didn't have very many diverse perspectives living here in Utah. And I was opened up to to see this. And I started to realize that I'm not here to debate people. I'm here to build dialogue with them. And by doing so, that gave me the ability to listen to what they were doing. And so if anybody has a problem with, any of my identities at this point, I listen and I know that it is actually coming from a place of care, and that they believe they are doing what is in their heart and what they believe to be true and to help. It's not coming to hurt me. And to really take that in and understand what it feels like from their perspective has brought me to a space where it's like, okay, I can still stand here alongside you. I can get to know you as a human being. I can hear you. I don't have to always agree with you, but I can find that common ground, and I can be in a space where you want to know me as a human and I want to know you as a human. You don't ever have to agree with me. And let's say my sexuality. I'm not here to say that you have to be okay with who I am. Mm-hmm. You don't. I'm okay with who I am. That's all that matters.
Yes, that matters.
Right? Yeah. And I've never been more happy in my life to be able to pull that understanding in, because I don't feel, I made a joke earlier in the podcast, like that I have double guilt. An Italian Catholic Jewish family is crazy wild with guilt. Yeah. But I don't have guilt for my love. And it did take so much time to get there. And it's just, if I could give anything to the entire world, it would be to have your self-love and unapologetically be who you are.
Because that's how you love people the best, is when you're coming from a place of authenticity. Even if it hurts to be yourself, you're literally, even if they seem put off by it, you're doing them, you're loving them well. Yeah. By being who you really are. And I think the hardest part is that in many religions, I mean, at least in the one I was in, and I'm assuming with LDS, they think that being gay is a choice, as if somebody would ever choose to go against the grain, and they think, oh, it's just a sexy thing to do. It's just a trend, or it's what, they do that with deconstruction too. Like that, it doesn't matter. Anything they don't understand, it's, oh, you're just trying to be sexy, or you're trying to be cool, or, find followers or whatever. And it's, I mean, you've experienced this. I know people that I've seen, I knew when they were kids that they were gay. I've known. And I would be like, oh my gosh, that poor parent is going to have to deal with, like you're going to have to make a choice. Are you going to stay with the church, or are you going to, fight for your kid? Because there's no way, but then they take them to conversion therapy and they do all these things to try to make, so what was it like? I don't know how to get people to understand, Amanda, like how it's not a choice. This is just, it's like trying to tell somebody who's heterosexual, you are a big fat sinner because you like the opposite sex. You know what I mean? Like it just is what it is.
Yeah. I saw a meme the other day that was like, if it was a choice, it was a woman. It was like, if it was a choice, I would be with a woman. Like, yeah. I laugh about it because here's the thing. I think through it. If it was a choice, like, would I have chosen this life? How much I absolutely love who I am and loving women and loving love, I would choose this. I would, but it's not. And the pain, the mental health, the struggles, the suicidality, everything that we go through in our lives, and our individuals as queer people. Now, we don't all have suicidal thoughts. We don't all get rejected from our families. We don't all face homelessness. There's so many different paths that our queer people face. And I don't want to put out there that everyone has the same journey. Every journey is different. We're honoring that journey, right? Yeah. But we do have higher, rates of mental health impacts. We do face homelessness at higher levels, especially here in Utah, where 40% of our queer kids do get rejected from their families and friends. We do have, higher drug use and alcohol use. These risk factors are real that lead us to, suicidal thoughts. And I think that those journeys, when someone says it's a choice, nobody wants to choose something that puts you up against those risk factors.
Yeah.
But we do want to choose love. So when you're asking us if it's a choice, yeah, we're choosing ourselves and we're choosing our happiness, because there are people who, when you say choice, that don't honor themselves and they stay married to, in a heterosexual marriage, to respect the church. And when you look at it like that, like, everyone has a choice for the actions that you're doing, but deep down, you're not going to change who you are and who you love and who your true authentic self is. But we all have choices in life. I think that some of the choices that have impacted our lives is the way that our families react, and that we don't honor ourselves because of the reactions to our families, and how hard it is to watch our families reject our queer communities and queer people. I worked in a center for LGBTQIA plus individuals, and I would be one of the first people that a kid who was rejected from their families would see. And when I tell you there is no pain in a child's eyes than being rejected from their family, it is something that I wish no one in the world would have to experience. The person that sees that kid, it is the look in their eyes, the pain, because their family tells them and pushes them out of the house and tells them you don't belong here anymore because of who you love or how you identify your gender or any of these things. And this kid is already pushing so hard to just be who they are, and then the family pushes them out. That pain is unlike it's almost like you can see just a soul that has been ripped out of them, and they're in their eyes. And I just, every time, you just wrap your arms around these kids and give them a hug, like, I love you, I see you, we're going to figure this out. But you can't replace that pain that these kids just went through, because religion is telling these parents that they should not accept their kids for who they are. And it's seriously one of the hardest things that I've encountered in my life is seeing the kids being rejected from families.
As you're talking, I'm like, I wish I could think of, Jesus was brilliant because, like, he always used parables so that people could insert themselves into a story and feel what they were, what he was trying to describe. And I'm like, I wish I could, like, come up with an analogy or something to help these people understand what they're doing. The thing I'm realizing as I've been studying for years about deconstruction and, everything, is that safety is literally, safety and belonging kind of go hand in hand. And those two things, I think, are sort of the crux of every decision we make, everything we do. We just want to belong and we want to feel safe. We want to feel loved, and love to me is safety. I feel safe with you, and like, imagine that, your complete safety just being ripped away, just because of who you are. Do you know what I mean? This is why the suicide rates are so high. This is why, kids are really messed up when their parents do this to them. This, and it's interesting because, like, I when I was in evangelicalism, I was like, oh my gosh, the worst thing that could ever happen is if my kids were gay, because I would have to make that choice. And I was so afraid of that. And I think to myself, that's why Todd came into my life, so I could know what it's like to have, Todd was on Survivor with me. And you guys, if you're listening, you've probably heard me talk about him a lot. Just having him in my life, like a kid, like my child, my Survivor guy, it made me realize I have got to figure this out, because I do feel like I have to make a choice. And I think initially my whole goal was to change him. Like, here, I'm going to figure this out so I can explain to him in better detail why this is so important. But in trying to do the research, I realized I was way off base. And I was so relieved when I realized that. because it felt wrong the whole time. And it's weird how many people in religion do what feels wrong because they're told that it's right, but they don't do any research for themselves. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think as I was thinking of how hard it is to even push back, right, on the religion, you don't want to question it because you're not here to question it. You're told to follow it and listen to it, even if you know it's wrong. And I think that comes hand in hand with queerness, right? We are kind of brought up in this society where we don't want to come and be different, and we're told not to be different. We're shown not to be different. Luckily, we're in a time where I think that's changing. I think we're really being shown a lot of love right now, even in such a dark time in our political world. I think there's been lots of ways to show us love. But as far as like standing up against that, it's just like us coming out. Like I don't like verbally have to come out every day. You can tell. I'm happy about it. This is who I am, little masculine woman. I got it. But as far as having everyone else that has to come out, that safety and that sense of belonging, right? This is such a hard journey for people, especially if like we're outed without being ready, or we don't want everyone to know that aspect of our lives, right? And I think that if we recognize that religion has that same aspect where our sense of belonging, if we come out, or if you come out against the church beliefs, can be somewhat detrimental in certain times and aspects of your life. Both journeys come kind of hand in hand. And
You're right. That's that's insightful.
Don't you think that religious people can understand coming out, and queer people can understand religious people coming out against their beliefs? Like there's we can see that, and that's our common ground if we really do sit down and talk about it. And there's a risk on both ends. There's gonna be, especially around community and family.
Well, and I think your journey and everything that you've learned along the way has really prepared you for being the executive director of Included United. Includedunited.org, you guys check it out. Located here in the Salt Lake area. And talk a little bit about what you offer and how you help these kids and different people who are just trying to be included.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I was at one org, and it was very focused on LGBTQIA+. And I was like, hold on, we need to expand. And how can we expand to help underrepresented identities? And I said, the best way is through education. So I'm an educator. I've moved into a space where I work in the nonprofit world to bring back education to our educators and our students, to ensure that underrepresented students, communities are in our schools. We have a lot of pushback around diversity, equity, and inclusion. I, however, am continuing to move the needle on this work. I want to ensure that kids are included in our schools. I want to ensure that people are included in our workplaces. So I do trainings on LGBTQIA+. I do trainings on individuals with disabilities. I work with partners to do trainings on race and ethnicity. We do work on religion and making sure people are just feeling included in the spaces. And what does that look like? We also built in some suicide prevention, because we know the numbers for our underrepresented identities. So I work with different organizations to do suicide prevention, and I provide means reduction here in this state, so that we do medication lock boxes. We have a high number of medication usage in this state, and I'm always trying to lock up our pills, safety. But we really, really work around community and building a sense of community and what that looks like. Because one of the things that I want is for everyone to feel that they belong within their areas, within the people that they surround themselves with, whether that is work or school. But what I really want people to learn is, when we build this community, and this brings us back to the conversation we were just having, when you do interact one-on-one with people and you get to know them, it's harder to hate us when you know us. I say it all the time.
It's so true.
When I give you my whole heart and I let you know who I am, it's going to be harder for you to to have these homophobic feelings and hatred towards me, because you're like, no, Amanda's actually a good human. And that's what I'm trying to show people, is when we include people and you get to know them, you're going to love them. We love humans.
Well, and it's funny because in religion, I was always told it's not that you don't love them, you just don't love their sin. So, love the sinner, hate the sin.
Yeah.
But see, in LGBTQ, it's very different, because it's almost an identity that you're kind of, I guess, hitched to. You know what I mean? So when you're saying, I don't like your lifestyle, quote unquote, then you're all of a sudden, you're like, well, that means they don't like me, or that, you know what I mean? There is this feeling, I think, that we completely forget and miss. But then I saw a meme the other day, well, probably a year ago or so, but it talked about how, people say in religion, they're like, love the sinner, hate the sin. It's like, yeah, well, love the believer, hate the belief. They don't like when you say that, because they're like, wait a minute. And then it's like, oh, you almost realize that you're really actually kind of undercutting my humanity by saying that. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So now maybe you get it. That's like the parable thing I was telling you about, Amanda. You gotta put people in that. And I don't know how to do that in every situation.
Yeah.
But I wish I could figure out how to help Christians and LDS, just help them understand what that sounds like when you tell somebody that, I don't know. I'm rambling. Sorry. I'm really passionate about this. I don't know if you can tell.
Yeah. I mean, that's what brought us together, to sit down and keep our friendship going and conversations. I think that's the whole point of the work that I'm trying to do here in this life. And I could have stayed in the schools and just had like classes of students, but I was like, I feel like I was meant to come into this world to reach a little bigger audience, with where my heart is and the way that I build these dialogues. I'm not afraid to be the person that they ask the hard questions to. Yeah. And in most of my trainings, I get asked those hard questions that could come off as being really painful, and, maybe even homophobic or transphobic, but I'm not here to judge anybody's ways or beliefs. I'm just here to talk about my experiences or help them understand what these identities mean, because there's so much misinformation and disinformation out there that's causing us to not be able to find those bonds and that common ground with each other.
Yeah, the common ground is gone because there's so many assumptions, and it's mostly just, propaganda from, a side that's maybe not supportive.
Yeah.
So let's talk. Okay. Since you like these hard questions, let's talk about this. Yeah. What are some misconceptions, Amanda? What are some things that you've heard said about the community that you're a part of that beyond a shadow of a doubt, it's BS?
Well, the simple pieces around, drag queen story hour. Let's go there, and the harm that our drag queens or our transgender individuals are putting on children. Let's talk about the hard stuff and the hard facts, because I've never seen a story where a drag queen had hurt a child, but I will tell you what I have seen. I have seen a drag story hour where men with guns were standing outside, and we had to cover the eyes of the children so they didn't see the guns. So who were the threat, right? It wasn't our drag queens. And, they're talking about the way that the drag queens or, trans women in bathrooms with us. Let's talk about bathrooms. As a very masculine woman, I hate using public bathrooms.
Oh, I'm sure.
I have been chased out of them. I've been told I don't belong. There's not a time that if I absolutely have to use the bathroom, I try to just stare at the floor, get in and get out. It is such a discomfort for me. And I'm a cisgender woman. So I was assigned female at birth. I identify as a woman. I am cisgender. So I can't imagine the life of a transgender woman just trying to go to the bathroom as well. It really is just such an uncomfortable feeling to just need to use the bathroom, a basic need that needs to happen, and your safety to be put up against it. I never know who's waiting outside of the bathroom for me. The women might not be the ones that are going to hurt me, but I might come out to an angry husband that, I'm a threat because I went into the bathroom, and they might assume I'm a man and I'm in there to do more than just pee, which all we're doing is trying to use the bathroom.
Just trying to use the bathroom. It's a biological thing. Sorry.
But what a space that this political environment has put us in, that a bathroom has been a thing. And I love, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I want to expand on that just a little bit because, I think I remember a lot of what I was worried about when I was in it I wasn't worried about the trans women. I was worried about the cisgender men who would pretend to be trans and go into the bathroom for a perverted purpose. Like that, I think, is what so many of them are afraid of. But instead of saying I'm afraid of, cisgender men who are perverts, I am more like, I'm going to blame the trans people, even though they're not the ones doing it. Yeah. Does that make sense?
100%. That's who is the threat.
Exactly.
That is who is harming our girls. Right. And that's the conversation that needs to be made. It's not trans women. It is our, cisgender men who are perverts that are causing the, sexual assaults or sexual violence towards women.
Right. Now, I'm not saying that every trans person is a saint. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying you are way more threatened by a pervert who is not, like a trans person than you are a trans person. I've never heard a story that a trans person did anything to anybody in a bathroom ever. No. But I have heard stories of men.
100%. And that's one of the things you need to recognize is, as I'm telling you this, as a masculine woman, we only use the bathroom when we absolutely need to. And I can tell you that's the facts with my trans friends and family. We do not choose to go to the bathroom if we can hold it. There are studies after studies where some will hold I used to in school, hold it for 10 hours a day because we don't want to make people uncomfortable. And, our safety, we do things to protect ourselves. We do things to ensure that we're safe in those bathrooms. We don't even have time. There's no time for us to have any moment where we're even enjoying a moment in a bathroom, because it is get in, get out as quick as you can, and just pray that you are safe while doing it. That is what happens. And
that's reality.
That's the conversations that are so hard, because being targeted around that is it's just again, propaganda, and it's just trying to change the narrative so that you can be uncomfortable, that people can be uncomfortable with trans people.
And it's, until you stop and listen, I had a trans woman on, I don't know, a few months ago, and it just brought me to tears, just hearing her experience and, hearing your experience as, a cis female LGBTQ, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe that you would be afraid to, like, I've never, ever experienced that where I was afraid to go to the bathroom anywhere. And if I would explode, frankly, Amanda. I couldn't do it. I may not be alive because I would just risk it all. Yeah. But you know what I mean? But those are the things, like if you just stop and listen, it's so much easier to honor someone's journey when they're not just like the stereotype or what you're just hearing from somebody who's not that. There's somebody who literally is having this experience in their life, and they just want to be safe and loved, and they want to belong. That's it. I don't know why we make it so freaking complicated.
And why it really has been more complicated than ever to feel safe. I did mention it does feel like I have a little more allyship that's happening right now. Yeah. Specifically in Salt Lake City. I'm very fortunate to live in Salt Lake City. Anywhere outside of Salt Lake gets hard. It's a little more rural areas that I don't feel safe. I choose not to go to certain places here in Utah and in the United States, right? And traveling the world. There's we have to think about our safety as queer people all the time. But there are little pockets where our inclusion does feel just a relief, where I don't have to think about it as much. And I think that people don't recognize that there's been so many misconceptions around these rainbow flags, and what those actually mean for us, or any kind of rainbow symbol, right? Is that small moment where you see that, you walk into a coffee shop and you see the flag and you just feel this sense of relief, like, okay, I'm okay right here. And for people who don't need that, you don't recognize that flag or that sticker's right there. But I can promise you, everywhere I walk in, the second I see that rainbow, I'm like, all right, I get it. I feel good.
I feel safe here.
I feel safe. And that's what these safety signals are for us, is just a way to know that you are in that moment, in that you can just breathe. You can order your coffee. You can be all right. And I'm so thankful for people that keep putting those rainbows up, keep showing that, because it really does matter to us that we have those moments where we can take a breath, because we are on constant worry.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I experienced a little bit of the hate that gets thrown on you in the last few weeks. I did a pride ride at my local studio where I celebrated. It was the beginning of Pride Month, and I was like, I'm going to celebrate. So we did this like spin class, and it was like, yay, Pride, come, let's celebrate, whatever. And I sent it out to a bunch of people, and one of my friends, who was in the text group, got very upset. Very upset and said that I was pushing an agenda, that I was being divisive, and she was so tired of it, and that her friends who are gay hate Pride Month because it's so divisive and blah, 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 blah. And I just was like, just don't come. Like, why do you have to do this? Like, don't come if this isn't something that you agree with. But I am going to be included. I don't feel like I'm being divisive. I feel like I'm being inclusive. And if your friends are telling you that they don't like Pride Month, it's probably because they don't feel safe enough to tell you that they do. Do you know what I mean? Because if you have a friend who is making a big deal about it, are you going to go, oh, well, actually, it's my favorite month of the year? You know what I mean? Like, no, you're just going to protect you've learned the safe places where you can be 100% yourself. And in that moment, I was just like, literally, I never thought that like political or these kind of beliefs would separate me from anyone in my friend group. But it was the first time I realized, I've really, in the last couple of years, started speaking out and stopped, protecting myself by being quiet. But yay, yay gays, shh, shh, Now I'm like, hey, I mean, I think my profile picture even has me, carrying a rainbow flag. But I just, I'm getting a lot of hate for it. And I'm realizing this is why people are afraid to be allies. But this is why it's so important that we are, guys. If you want somebody to walk into your business and feel safe, like, it's so simple. You don't even have to say a word. Yeah. Just show that love and inclusion. I don't know, to me. And that's exactly how life feels now, Amanda. I think we talked about this at lunch, how like, I feel like before the world was black and white to me. It was very, very, do this is right. This is wrong. There is no in between, and now I feel like there's so many colors in the world that I never was able to experience and enjoy. And now, so that rainbow to me just means, I don't care what you believe, where you're from, what you think. Yeah. I just like, let's come together and find that common ground that you were talking about. And it's just quite beautiful.
And like, I can tell from both of our journeys and our stories together, like, we both are at this really great space of happiness.
Yeah.
And I think back to where I was, where I wasn't finding, the common ground with people, or I wasn't being my unapologetic queer self that I absolutely love. And that there was that black and white world where it was like, so much was told on how we've needed to live. And as soon as we started to just kind of make the journey our own, that's when the color and the beauty and life really started to come, right? Yeah. We really are starting to experience life in our own ways without someone telling us the ways we have to do it, without religion controlling the ways that we have to do it. And we are finding that happiness. Now, are we happy all the time? No. You know, this world is dark. There are still people trying to control our daily lives and trying to change our narrative. But when we really do have this unapologetic joy, and whatever that looks like in your joy, mine's queer joy, mine's so much joy, that even in the darkest times, I still have that little sparkle. And I think that that's what keeps me going day in and day out. And I love it. I really have never been happier than I am right now.
I would attest to that in my experience and in my journey. It's not that, I don't know that it's queer joy, it's love joy. I don't know, like I'm just able to love people and connect and have relationships with people without feeling like I need to fix them or save them or convince them or defend my faith. But yeah, this has been such a beautiful conversation. I knew it would be, and I'm so excited to share it with my listeners because I know, I don't know, I sometimes just go sit and listen to somebody who has a different experience than you, or maybe relate to somebody who has the same. You know, I know I have a lot of queer listeners who I adore, and I'm getting more of them, and I love it. Oh, it's so fun. It's funny. I'm such an ally. I'm being accused of being gay now. I'm like, no, hopelessly heterosexual, but very, very much love the gay community and, you know, the queer community. It's just, I'm experiencing life in just such a more like kaleidoscope way or something. I don't know. And I've never been happier because I can fully be myself and love people right where they are and not worry about their eternity and not worry about their sexuality. What do I care? Like none of my business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
None of my business.
That's the gift we want to give to everyone.
Yes.
Find this happiness. Like, look at our smiles, like alone. There's so much joy between you and I in our journeys that y'all follow suit. Find your happiness with us because it is a beautiful place to be in.
Yeah. And like, if you don't, and you find happiness in another way, still find that place within you where you can honor somebody's journey without having to agree with it. You know, you can still be lovely. You don't have to be a jerk. You don't have to be judgmental. You know, you're not going to get rewards in heaven for how many queer people you told were going to hell. I promise you that. Like, there's just no doubt in my mind that is anti-love. Yeah. So anyway, thank you, Amanda. This was great. It was very refreshing.
Thank you for having me and just being so open to listen and sharing your journey too, because it means a lot to have your journey along with my journey. Yeah. You're bringing me so much joy and happiness too.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot to me. So we're gonna have to plan another lunch and hang out and do another deep talk that I'll probably want to put on my podcast.
There's so much more. So
anyway, well, thank you, Amanda. And if you want to find Amanda, you can check out includedunited.org. She is there. She's making all the difference. Maybe there's something you can do to help her in that endeavor. Thank you for what you do for so many people.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Honoring the Journey. Don't forget to check out the show notes to learn more about our guests and find links to things that we chatted about today. If you're interested in learning more about my deconstruction or faith transition coaching, please visit my website at leslieneescoaching.com. I look so forward to sharing another amazing journey with you next time right here on Honoring the Journey.